History is important, gentlemen. If you can't learn from it, you're destined to repeat it.
Oobleck's lesson back in Volume 1 isn't exactly groundbreaking. You've probably heard similar sentiments, if not nearly identical statements shared in all other forms of fiction, but also reality. Learning from history's past ensures the future doesn't fall into its previous mistakes. If not, history will always repeat itself. And I think this is one of the most important overarching themes for Rwby's entire narrative. The whole story has sort of been about this endless cycle Ozpin and Salem find themselves in, battling against each other, and Ozpin keeps doing the same things over and over again. And the story is about breaking that cycle. But something I can't help but seem to shake is the feeling that everything that's currently happening has already happened before. The feeling that we're not actually in the process of breaking a cycle, we're in the middle of it repeating. The sense that Team Rwby and what they're going through right now isn't the first time that this has happened. And that's because it's not the first time that this has happened, because it's already happened with Team STRQ. Despite the limited knowledge we have about them, the same plot points are already playing out exactly the same way with Team Rwby. For example, tell me if this sounds a little familiar. A team of 4 huntsmen are formed at Beacon Academy with a silver-eyed cloaked warrior as their leader. Ozpin plays favorites with said team and prioritizes them due to the special nature of one student particularly, but the talent of the others helps as well. Over time, romantic feelings begin to form within said team, knowledge about Ozpin's secrets are revealed, and the group is dragged into a much larger war than ever realized. Such information doesn't sit well with some members of the team, and they turn on Ozpin. But some of them have been dragged in so deep they can't just ignore what they've learned, and so they must fight Salem. Sound familiar? While Team Rwby is technically the main story, the way everything has been set up feels like a second iteration of what's happened with Team STRQ. But something that's always irked me about this feeling that history's repeating itself are Crow and Ty. Specifically, the fact that they never seem to talk about Salem. Ty has a little bit of an excuse because he was around in Volume 4 before the Salem journey truly began. But Crow, I hate to say this, has become exceedingly useless as time has gone on. The more time passes, you begin to realize he's not contributing to anything happening around the characters other than simply being their chaperone. He never speaks to Rwby about her mother, how she used to lead the team. He never offers up past advice and strategies he learned about Salem. I can't even recall if he's ever uttered her name. He's been with the characters for about 5 volumes now. They've encountered Salem, they're fighting against her. And yet he never seems to mention any past experiences or knowledge he has about her. It's almost as if Crow and Ty had never even heard of her before this journey began. There is a massive implication that Salem had a direct hand in the disbanding of Team STRQ, definitely in the killing of Summer. Salem undeniably knows about Team STRQ, as in Volume 4 when she had Tyrion try and assassinate Crow, which only resulted in him getting poisoned, she says how Ozpin's last eye is blinded.
The last eye is blinded.
Meaning she knows about Crow and Raven being Ozpin's eyes, and she knows that Raven had defected from him. So Salem is aware of Team STRQ's existence and importance to Ozpin in the past, but it feels like a one-sided relationship. History is repeating itself before Crow's very eyes. A new team led by a silver-eyed warrior is fighting in Ozpin's frivolous war, and yet he never seems to try and mention it to the others so they can learn from their mistakes. Crow is simply being an observer, following the footsteps of these children, not contributing anything. And Ty didn't exactly have much of a reaction to the warning of Salem from his house. For some odd reason, no one is attempting to teach the characters from history's past. Except for one person. In a completely ironic sense, there has only ever been one character who's tried to actually warn the others, and that's Raven. Whereas Ty passively sits on his couch all day, Crow meanders about life as if he has no memory of the past, and Ozpin hides all knowledge of his history, Raven is the only one to have not only warned of Salem, but also gave advice that she wished she had sooner. She does what no other character has done, and that's tell the truth. And she tells the truth because she wants her daughter to know the truth.
If you're really going after your sister, then you need to know the truth.
The first lesson she tries to teach is the concept of truth itself. Yang doesn't want to believe anything her mother had to say because Yang didn't like her mother. She believes the things that Tai has said to her and what Crow has told her about. But Raven breaks this perception by telling them that the reason she and Crow initially went to Beacon was to learn how to kill huntsmen.
Your Uncle Crow and I didn't attend Beacon to become huntsmen. We did it to learn how to kill huntsmen. Daddy and Uncle left that part out,
Just because Yang likes Crow and her father doesn't mean that they ever give her the whole story. They may not be directly lying to her, but similar to Ozpin, how much different is hiding the truth to lying itself? The show has made it a clear point that Tai shelters his daughters from information. In the case of Yang, it was information about Raven. Yang only ever made progress and headway in tracking her down thanks to Crow. Next was the direct correlation between Team Rwby and Team STRQ. The favoritism, the bias, and the inevitable trust of information that no one else knew about.
Professor Ozpin. Even after we were put on a team, I could tell he was keeping his eye on us. Back then, I thought it was because he knew. But it was Team STRQ he was interested in.
What do you mean by that?
Constant attention, extra training missions, turning a blind eye whenever we happened to break the rules and get into more trouble than we should have. Sound familiar?
Raven knows of Ozpin's immortality and shares that information here. She warns that he is not to be trusted and that he's hiding things.
How much do you know about Professor Ozpin? About his past?
He was a prodigy, one of the youngest headmasters to be appointed to a school.
Because that's how he planned it. Because the man you know as Ozpin designed those schools, and has followers inside every academy on Remnant that are loyal to him and no one else. Because Old Man Oz has a great and terrible secret. One that could spread fear across the world. One that he eventually entrusted to our team. And once I knew, there was no going back. I needed to know more. But with every new discovery I made, the more horrifying the world became.
Then there was the warning of Salem. Raven is the only one of the characters to have ever actually warned of Salem's danger.
What's the big secret? What's so crazy that the rest of us don't know?
The creatures of Grimm have a master named Salem. She can't be stopped, she can't be reasoned with, and she will not rest until humanity crumbles at her feet.
But the things that she's learnt don't end there because of the vast quantity of things that she claims to have observed.
I know more than you realize. Not just about you, and not just what I've been told, but things I've seen with my own eyes. I know the Grimm have a leader. I know people who can come back from the dead. I know that magic is real. And I can prove it.
With hindsight, as the audience, we know that each and every one of these things are true. Not a single thing she said in their entire interaction was a lie. She tries to teach Yang to question everything, even the things that she's saying to her now.
Why should we believe any of this?
Now you're catching on. So far, you've done nothing but accept what others tell you. But you need to question everything.
But by the end of it all, Yang chooses not to heed any of this advice. And 4 volumes later, we see exactly how everything Raven said came to pass. In a way, part of it already had. Ozpin had already played favorites with Team Rwby due to her silver eyes and working with them more than the others. Raven warned of Ozpin's secrets and the fact that he was a man who hid the truth even when it seemed like he was being honest. And in Volume 6, Ozpin's secrets came spilling out, even betraying the trust of Crow. And thus, everyone turned on him, but only because they dared to ask questions. In fact, their betrayal goes beyond the information even Raven knew, as this much history was likely unknown to her. And wouldn't you know it, Yang now, much like Raven, has a disdain for Ozpin and how he's mishandled their trust. In Volume 7, Yang chose to begin asking questions and thinking for herself when it came to Robin. She stopped letting others tell her what to think, as Raven advised. And because of that, they formed an ally instead of a foe. Then they came face to face with Salem, and she took down Atlas. Despite a giant magic explosion, she still walks. She cannot be killed, just as Raven warned. She cannot be reasoned with, despite Yang's attempts to call what she's doing childish and selfish, because she cannot be convinced. Everything Raven had said came to pass, but none of her advice was listened to because Yang was too stubborn to look past the fact that she left her. Quite frankly, as it currently stands, it falls on Yang to now realize that Raven only ever told the truth. Does she have the wherewithal to look back in history and recognize that her mother was being honest and actually giving her advice? Because quite frankly, she's the only one who seems to have tried that. In a way, this was all part of Raven's lesson. She had no problem with Yang initially refusing to believe anything that she was saying because the truth would inevitably come out. If Yang would seek the answers she refused to believe, she would see that she was telling the truth. Now, the question becomes, will Yang acknowledge the truth? Do the writers have the physical capacity to look back and acknowledge that Raven was being honest? Or will they continue to push her down for being a mother who abandoned her child? As Raven said, she knows a lot more than everyone realizes about Yang and the rest of the world. Her guidance, her outlook on the world, and her attitude would have saved everyone the shock and betrayal she already had to go through. Quite frankly, when Raven does re-enter the story, she has all the rights to be the smuggest bitch on the planet. The I told you so attitude, whether or not they want to do it, is completely warranted. But what's the point in all of this? Well, aside from wanting to talk about Raven again, it was to showcase a key piece of the story that is consistently getting ignored, and that's the past. Things are transpiring in modern day as if it's the first time any of this has happened. The first time Ozpin favored a team, the first time Ozpin's secrets came out, the first time someone turned on him, and the first time anyone has ever gone against Salem. It's like no one has any knowledge of Salem or any past experiences to try and learn from. It comes off as Team Rwby Mr. Magooing their way into a victory without any sort of plan for how they're doing things. If they do not wish to be doomed to repeat history, it is only with the direct involvement of Ozpin, Raven, Tai, and Crow to make sure history doesn't wind up as it did for them. But anyway, that's all I have to say for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think the remnants of Team Stark are going to come back together and help guide the new generation? Or is Team Rwby just going to wing it and win anyway? Any and all thoughts, be sure to let me know in the comments below, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video.